Romance at a glance. Romance at a glance.
What you say now?
Romance at a glance.
Go ahead, girl.
Dear Romance Besties, this season we will be exploring dark romance. That means I need to give y'all a little trigger warning.
We are going to be reading books where consent is murky at best. There will be triggering topics of psychological and physical abuse, manipulation, kidnapping, slavery, rape, bullying, bodice ripping, and sexual assault on the page.
If this is not your cup of tea, we get it. We have lots of great books for you in our previous seasons and more coming up next season.
Without further ado, Shani, welcome to the dark side.
Ooh, thank you, Bridget. I'm ready.
Well, hello, dear listeners, and welcome to another episode of Romance at a Glance. I'm your host, Bridget. With me, as always, is my co-host, Shani. What up, Shani?
What up, Bridget?
I am stoked to talk to you about It Ain't Me, Babe by Tillie because I read it a couple of weeks ago, and due to some scheduling things, you just finished it, and so I have been waiting to find out what you think. And then, of course, in reverse, tonight you were waiting for me because I did not finish my notes on time. So I feel like we're just ready. Bursting.
I know, I'm so excited. I didn't realize you had finished it like so long ago, though. I'm glad I didn't know that.
Because you know me, it's like I finished the last book and I just go to the next book. And I was like, that's silly. I need to read a few like other books in between so that you have time to actually like even get the audiobook like ready to go. Because the audiobooks are always longer then.
Yeah. Did you read Flame Story? Just on a side note.
Yes.
I knew it.
Of course I did, Shani. Obviously, I read book 2 and 3 immediately after reading book 1. If you guys would like to hear my reviews of that, you can go to patreon.com/romance at a glance, where I'll be talking about books 2 and 3 of the Hades Hangman series.
You know what, Rich? I'm so mad at you because I want to know what happens in Flame's book, but you're going to have to tell it to me like a slow story.
I will tell you like a slow story on Patreon. Happily.
I'm excited.
Happily, I'll read you my favorite passages.
Oh, perfect. Because that's the story I was really interested in. I was like, tell me more, Flame. He's like cutting himself and blood dripping down his own arm.
Yes.
And then
he's
like,
very tortured.
He's got a love story.
Yes.
I'm like, definitely got to read it.
I do think it was the best of the first 3 books.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Okay. I might skip to that one, whatever.
I don't know that you'll like the next one as much. Only because, and I know I said I'm going to talk about it on Patreon, but I'll give you guys a little teaser here. I don't think you're going to like book 2 as much, only because the main character, she is like very brainwashed by the cult and didn't want to leave. So like, whereas like May escaped, the main character in this book escaped on purpose and wanted to leave and like was like wanting to experience the world and wanting to try things even though she was scared. The main character in the second book, about half, well, I don't know, I can be making this up, but about half the book. I mean, she's like fundamentally brainwashed by this cult and like deeply thinks that she is going to go to hell if she does not go back. And it takes a really long time for her to break free of her brainwashing, which I think is realistic. Like, I think it's a good portrayal. However, it doesn't make for, and it makes for a very sweet finale and it makes for a really good story. But in terms of it being like a dark romance, like she's very much brainwashed. So I think you'll like book 3 better than 2, I guess is the point of my story.
Is Kai the next book?
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
But anyways, I think that we should get into this book because this is the one that we are supposed to talk about.
Let's get into this book. It Ain't Me, Babe by Tillie Cole.
It Ain't Me, Babe by Tillie Cole. Let's get this shit poppin'. Let's get it poppin'.
Romance at a glance. Romance at a glance.
What you say now?
Romance at a glance.
Go ahead, girl.
Okay, everyone, welcome back. So, as you guys know, this is It Ain't Me, Babe by Tillie Cole. It is book number 1 of the Hades Hangman series. There are 8 books in total, along with a couple of supplemental novellas, some of which go into the past of different bikers' lives, and then some of which go like are sort of like in the timeline. It is, of course, dark romance. You guys would know we're doing dark romance all season. Dark romance, contemporary dark romance, motorcycle club romance, MC romance. Shani, tell me a little bit about the narrator. What was the audio like?
The audio was solid. It was J.F. Harding and Annie Green, and I thought that they did a good job. I don't really remember them too much, so they were good.
Didn't distract from the story, just told it to you.
They just told it to you.
All right. What did you think about the cover art? I'm intrigued about what you think because obviously we've talked a lot, you guys, on the podcast about how illustrated covers do not really do it for us and also make us think things are going to be light and fun and airy. And I thought this cover gave me a good indication, like with the washed out coloring and the blood red text that like, and he's on a motorcycle, that this was going to be dark. At least that's how I felt.
Okay, so 2 things. 1, I like the cover of this. I mean, if a cover could tell you exactly what the book is about, I felt like this kind of did. 2, I don't necessarily think this was a dark romance.
I agree. And I was going to wait a little bit longer, but I'm glad you brought it up right away because
You was going to wait.
I was going to like try and figure out how to tease this into the conversation. But when I think dark romance, I think that between the 2 main characters, there's going to be darkness.
Yes.
And this book was very dark. Like the cult, and I'm going to read you guys the synopsis in a second, but the cult and like the child rape and imprisonment and like they murdered her sister, like, and like they were like abusing them and branding them and all these other things. Obviously like trapping them in this cult commune sort of fenced offness so they couldn't escape. And all of that obviously is incredibly dark. But the actual romance was not dark.
Yeah, I totally agree.
But let me give a little synopsis real quick so people know what we're talking about, and then we'll go into the book. So many years ago, there were 2 children who met through a huge fence. A boy with a severe stutter who could talk only to her, his dad, and best friend, and a girl, May, a prisoner in a commune where she regularly is horrifically raped by pedophile prophet and disciples of the cult. After her sister is brutally murdered and left to die, May, then Salome, runs and escapes to the outside world she has never seen. Afraid of everything, she finds herself at River Styx's motorcycle club. He happens to be the boy through the fence. Powerful fists and iron jaw and the skillful use of his treasured German blade has earned River Styx a fearsome reputation as the hangman mute. Will this man be her salvation or drag her to hell? And I have to say he was her salvation, obviously. Because despite the fact that he is in a motorcycle club and they're all like, at the beginning of the book, you know, he's like fucking whoever he wants to, and they're all talking about bitches this and bitches that and cutting people up and generally just dealing drugs and guns and all sorts of badassness. He meets her and like his best friend even is like, this can't be the girl you've been, like, we thought you made her up, because he's been talking about her and obsessed with her since he saw her at like 11 years old and just like thought he'd never ever find her. Like he tried to find her, couldn't find her. And the only reason he was near the commune is because that's where his dad was dumping a dead body while he was in the car. So he like happened to be near it, and then he could never find it again because his dad wouldn't tell him.
Yeah.
And aside from a few like minor character problems in the sense that he's like aggressively jealous, I would say his is major character default for me. But everyone has to have a default. He can't just be perfect.
Yeah.
I would definitely agree with you that this book was not a dark romance. I think it was, again, dark content. Incredible, like a ton of triggers. Like there's some fucked up shit in this book that happens and that she remembers. But the romance itself was actually kind of sweet.
You think it was sweet?
Or not sweet. Maybe sweet's the wrong word. It was like hopeful almost. In the sense that they both were reaching for someone and that person reached back. Which I think is kind of a hopeful thing for 2 people who feel very damaged.
First of all, that just sounds really sad. I imagine like 2 people in the dark.
I mean, the book was I thought the book was kind of sad.
They touch each other and then they're like, you know what? We met. Let's just call it a day. You and me. Let's go.
Well, I mean, that's basically what happens at 8 and 11 is like, they're like, let's just call it a day. Like, you're kind of my person.
Yes. So that is pretty much all that I got from Salome, May, whatever you want to call her, and Styx, right?
Is it Salome? I just call her Salome. Salome. That makes way more sense.
Salome. It's very
makes
biblical.
way more sense.
Salome. But I know how that goes, man. There was a word that I had only ever read in historical romance in historical romance books for years. And I used it out loud in person to my sister, and she looked at me and she was like, Shani, that's not what you think. I was like, huh? She's like, that's not how you say that. Like, oh, okay.
I mean, it brings me back to our Black Dagger Brotherhood days when we could never figure out how to pronounce anyone's names. And we were like, you know what, fuck it. We're just going with our own goddamn pronunciation.
Okay, so Salome and Styx, I did not connect with these characters. And mostly because there was no love story.
I agree. This was not a sexy book.
No, I didn't think it was a romantic book. I mean, they had some fuckings here and there, but where was the romance? If the romance was, she's mine, then there was romance. But honestly, they had nothing in common. I mean, what did they do for each other other than the fact that they met at 8 and 11? And now they are meeting. And oh my God, if I have to hear wolf eyes like one more time.
Yeah, he did call her wolf eyes a lot.
And those wolf eyes. And I'm like, oh my God, please.
I'm like, part A, I don't even know what that means. Part B, also they use, like, what did you think about the fact that she used even in the internal monologues or in the description part, used the word bitches all the time?
Okay, so bitch is like a word that I adopted in my later life, right? So I used to never curse when I was younger, and I would never refer to a woman as like a bitch or a whore or whatever. But in the last like year or two, I've really embraced bitch, and I'd be like, bitch, what the fuck?
I feel like this is partially my fault.
Right?
I've corrected you. I'm like, bitch, please.
Because first of all, we get so hyped that there's sometimes I can't describe something without being like, bitch.
I know. It's a great word.
But full disclosure, I have not read that many motorcycle books.
I haven't either.
Maybe like one a long time ago. So I'm not like super familiar with the vernacular, but they kept saying bitch. So I'm like, okay, that must be a motorcycle thing.
Yeah.
But they just kept saying it over and over and over again. And it doesn't bother me. It just bothered me like how repetitive it was. It was the same with wolf eyes. Like, I don't need to keep hearing it all the time. So that was my only problem.
I did not mind it when they were speaking in like quotations because obviously it's like, again, part of the culture. And so it sets the scene, whatever. That's how they actually refer to women. Fine. But I felt like in his internal monologue, like they could have substituted girl, woman, lady, chick, hottie, whatever for like some of it, because I feel like in like when I'm talking, like I might always say dude, but in my mind I might be like that guy or like May, like use her name or something like that. I felt like it was really repetitive. Like it was too much. It was too much bitches for me. Too many bitches.
There was a lot of stuff in this book to me that was repetitive. So I was underwhelmed because I liked a lot the premise of the story. Mm-hmm. I loved the cult angle, the motorcycle club, like even them meeting as little kids, you know, and that sort of thing. So the book started off with like hopefulness in my eyes. And then it like subsequently dropped off. First off, Ryder, I felt way more chemistry for May and Ryder, and I wanted them to be together.
I definitely thought there was going to be a turn. And even in her, that was one of the quotes that I picked out because I wanted to talk about it. She says in her mind, for the very first time, this is like maybe, I don't know, a third of the way through the book or maybe 40%. For the very first time, I saw Ryder in a whole new light. He was beautiful. And I was like, oh shit, are we taking a turn? I was like, okay, things are going to be happening where she's going to have to choose between the like, I mean, they're both in a motorcycle club and kill people, but like she's going to have to choose between the good, quote unquote, good one and the bad boy one. And that's going to have to be like a real choice. But then it never actually manifests as a choice because she never gives Ryder a chance.
Well, I think Tillie, okay, I'm mad at Tillie for this because she set up Ryder to be this kind of sweet person who's helping her out and then very quickly turned him into an incel, okay?
Into a what?
And like, into an incel.
What's that?
Involuntary celibate. It's these guys on the internet who blame women for not being able to date them or whatever, and then end up going crazy on them and attacking them and doing crazy shit to them or bullying them on the internet. They're called incels.
I called him a pussy-ass bitch. That's what I said. I said, yo, you a pussy-ass bitch. She wants to be your friend. And you're like, me, you don't love me. Me, I can't be your friend. Me. And I was like, this man is a pab.
And like, my thing is that she set him up. I felt like she gave him a certain personality and then took it away from us. Not in a way that felt justified. Ryder just all of a sudden got real possessive. And not only that, she said no multiple times. And like even the last time where she'd already said no, he'd already gotten like beaten up and stuff. And he puts his hand out and he's like, come with me. And she's like, it's like, bitch.
I know. She's like, no, I love Styx, you crazy mofo.
Yeah. But it seems so out of character and it seems so put on to me, that whole situation.
So I will say, okay, because we find out at the end of the book that he's actually Cain and he's the heir to the entire cult. And he's been embedded because they're trying to take over all of the gun traffic and drug traffic. And so he's been embedded with them, feeding them information this whole last 5 years. And so that's the reason why he doesn't sleep with anyone, because I don't know if they talk about that in this book, but it's part of his religion that he has to be pure until he becomes like the anointed cult leader or whatever.
Yeah. Which is funny because they're looking for a rat and they don't suspect the one dude in their whole crew.
But he's been there 5 years. Like, that's a long time. You know what I mean? It's not like he's been there a year. It's like 5 years is a long ass time, Shani.
Yeah, I guess so. I give it to you.
I mean, 5 years ago, like, I didn't have children. Like, you know what I mean? A lot. It's like there's a lot of things happened in 5 years.
Bridget, we could have been living our best life
5 years ago. And also, the way he is with her actually makes sense, too. Because if you think about the fact, like, if you think back now on his actions and put it in the perspective of he was raised in a cult that does not value women, that treats them as a property. So he thinks, and he knows that she's supposed to be with the cult leader. So he knows that she is supposed to be with him and or the cult. So like in his mind, it's his right to her and her body. And the fact that she doesn't want to come, he's like, what are you talking about? We're perfect together. You should be with me. Like, he's a bad guy. He's going to hell because he's not part of a cult, because he isn't in our religion. And I want to save you. You know what I mean? So, like, he's a nut job. He's a fucking nut job. And he only gets nuttier in books 2 and 3. Although in book 3, starts to swing back and realize his cult is crazier than he thought it was.
I wish that he wasn't the nut job, though.
I wish he wasn't in the cult, though, for real. Although I see why she did it, because it plays out over multiple books. But also, like, I liked Ryder at the beginning.
Yes, I liked Ryder, and I wanted her to be with Ryder, not the other dude. Okay, I'm going to take a big pivot here because I put this in like big bold letters in my notes.
Oh, I know what it's going to be.
Don't you jump the gun. I'm going to say this, okay?
I want to see if I'm right, though, in my mind.
This is my biggest problem with this motherfucking book. May left her sisters in a fucking cult and never tried to go back for them. She just went on to live her happy life in the motorcycle gang and never talked about going back for them at all.
Well, she did ask him, and he said, I've been looking for you my whole life and I could never find it. I'm sorry, I can't find you. I don't know where they are. She asks him about it.
But she doesn't push to go find her sister. She knows exactly what they're going through. Bridget, are you going to tell me, right? You know your sister's in a cult where some shit is happening to her and she's dead in the motherfucking eyes. And you make it out to paradise and you're going to go lounge at the beach and have a party? Like, knowing that your sisters are still stuck somewhere? Like, not a chance in motherfucking hell. Not a chance. There's just not a chance.
So, probably not. However, I was raised in the world, like, trying to put myself into her shoes. Her one sister didn't want to come. She knows that they can't be found. She has no idea where she escaped from. She's like afraid for her life that if she like leaves the house, they'll somehow find her, even though she's hours and hours away. He tells her, like, I tried to find you and that commune forever and I never could. And they have like extensive resources and stuff. So I can see where in her mind, as someone who doesn't understand the world or that there's other avenues to explore, that she's like, I'll never find them. You know what I mean? Because she's never even like seen a phone, Shani. Like, she doesn't know anything about anything. She doesn't even know about like Coca-Cola. You know what I'm saying? And I will say that in subsequent books, because they do, okay, so she does get kidnapped and taken back and put with her sisters. And then he goes, because now he knows who to like track down and who's involved. And so he goes and brings the pain, and they find the commune, and he calls in like the MCs from the entire nation and is like, we're going to war, everyone get ready. And they all come and they attack the commune and kill all the elders that they could find, and they kill the main guy. And that part I liked, though, when she like pointed at him and he was like, that one, and he was like, snipe him. And I was like, no questions asked. That's what I like out of my characters in this scenario. In real life, I'd be concerned if someone was like just killing people on my whim. But in this scenario, if I tell you to kill somebody, I don't want to hear no lip about it. I don't want you to be like, which one?
Don't ask questions.
I want you to just fucking kill the fools I point at. Pop that one, pop that one, pop that one. And then they go and rescue the sisters, and he comes back and, like, obviously saves everyone.
I liked the massacre at the end. I thought it was a good scene. I thought when the sister saw the guy dead and came back and was really happy with Flame, like, I thought that was cute. As cute as that scene can be. I actually really enjoyed that. Them storming the compound or whatever. In my mind, I was like, I don't know if they're outnumbered or not, but I'm just going to imagine that they're really badasses at this shit. So I gave it to him.
No, they outnumbered the cult people. They said that.
Oh, okay. I thought the cult people outnumbered them. Okay, so I had it the way around. Okay, but there's so many things in this book that made me laugh so hard, and I don't know where to start. So aside from the cult leaders, so one-dimensional Lois. So Stick, exactly. You see who?
Oh, well, you said one-dimensional Lois, and you're talking about the woman that he was having sex with at the beginning, or like getting blowjobs with at the beginning?
That he was having sex with, who didn't matter so much to the story that they blew her head off very quickly. Tillie just got rid of her.
Yeah, she got murdered real quick. We don't want to have no rival in place. Can't have two rivals on both sides, Shani. Let's kill one. Also, I think it was like also like her way of showing that there are stakes in this world and that it's not just like, oh, someone might get injured. It's like people are dying in these conflicts, I think.
Yeah. And then Styx killed 10 neo-Nazis single-handedly.
Yep. The hangman mute just went, you know why I didn't mind that scene, Shani, is because he almost died. So, like, I don't like when people go in, like, this is a criticism for action movies, too. And there's, like, a million bad guys with Uzis and like, no one gets actually hit with a bullet. And I'm like, let's be realistic. A little bit. Not a lot, because I like my action movies with a little bit of cray, but a little bit of realism is sometimes nice. But in this, like, he almost dies. And the only reason he survives is because they didn't check him for like a second hidden dagger. And that's why he killed them. But they like torture him and carve a swastika in him before he does that. So it's not like he just like casually killed 8 people and just like was totes fine. Like he casually killed 6 people with the element of surprise and then got tortured, a swastika, and narrowly escaped with his life. And so I was like, okay, fine. I accept that.
Okay, explain to me why Ryder did not kill Styx when he stole May back.
Towards the end, you mean?
Towards the end, yes. So he hung him up on a fence and they like tortured him a bit, but then he let him live, knowing that Styx is a stubborn motherfucker and will come back.
I cannot answer that for you. I guess I had 2 thoughts about it. One was that Ryder has been living with him for 5 years and actually like respects and likes him. As much as he thinks he's like the devil and going to hell, he also like respects his code and like he kind of fell in love with that life of their sort of like immoral morality. That was my first thought. And my second thought was that he knew May would never forgive him if he killed Styx, and he desperately wants her to love him. That was my second thought.
Okay. The second one I might buy a little bit more. Yeah. But okay, those are reasonable.
I love how this is just like me debunking your problems with this book. I'm loving this episode so much. So fun.
Okay, so the other thing, so I sat down and I was like, okay, Shani, like this book feels like it has all the things in place, but it almost feels like things are just in the wrong place or there's just not enough of things, right? So like one of the other things that I quantified when I was sitting with myself, I was like, why don't I like this book? I think it's because in my alpha males, even if they're like hotheads and they want to fight and do that sort of thing, there's a certain amount of intelligence that they have, right? I respect them and I think they're smart, even if they are letting their temper get the best of them sometimes or that sort of thing. But I more enjoy my hotheads that can be controlled, like that controlled seething.
Yeah, he was not a control. He was definitely a fire and brimstone. He was not a like cold as ice, like let me control the situation.
Exactly. And the one thing I think that really turned me off in the book, and it has nothing actually to do with the girl at all. It's that I think it was Kai found the cell phone in one of the brothers' rooms and said that he was a snitch. And then they carved him up real fast and killed him. He didn't talk. They didn't ask him hardly no questions or whatever. He was just gone. And then you find out later that Ryder was the rat. And don't really hear anything about how they accidentally killed the wrong dude.
You know what? They ain't got time for apologies. They were fighting a war, Shani. Also, they are bad dudes. So they're just like, whatevs, moving on. Let's get some new recruits. Casual murdering. I mean, keep in mind that this is the MC that has Flame in its group, and he is literally cutting himself and making himself bleed the whole book. And he literally says, I need to go murder people, like, let me loose, multiple times. And they're like, don't worry, Flame. And like, when people see him coming, they start running because they're so scared because he loves killing people.
I mean, you're not wrong.
I mean, I think they're just not good people. It's like a good place to start from with like, they killed someone on accident and they're like, well, it's a casualty of war. They really put it on Ryder, frankly. They were like, this is Ryder's fault for framing that guy. Not our fault for being duped, I'll be.
Wash our hands of it.
We wash our hands of the sin. I pass it to you.
Okay, another question, Bridget. How do you feel about the author skipping ahead a month? So she gets found, and then they're like, oh, wolf eyes. And then they skip ahead a month.
I didn't really mind. I mean, so many authors in romance do epilogues and shit that are like set multiple years or months or whatever ahead. So I was actually kind of used to it, I feel like. I was kind of just like, oh yeah, of course they skipped ahead, because they always do. They always skip like the really hard part right after everyone gets together. You know what I mean? They always like gloss right over that to 2 months in advance.
No, at the beginning.
Oh.
I'm talking about at the beginning of the book when she gets together with Styx.
Oh.
There's like a time jump.
Oh, yeah, because he leaves her for a month while she's healing.
Yeah.
I didn't mind it at all, frankly. I didn't care. I thought it was fine. Because honestly, she was so injured that if they had like picked up right from there, it would have just been like her gimping around. You know what I'm saying? It's like, oh, she's sleeping again today. Oh, she's fucking sleeping again today. Like she had like, you know what I mean? Like she's like malnourished, had a savage dog bite on her leg, like was barely like almost bled to death. They'd give her multiple pints of blood. Like that bitch ain't going nowhere for at least a week or two. So I was actually fine with it. It kind of explained the fact that when he came back, she could like walk around and talk to him and do things.
Yes.
It didn't let him be the one to nurse her, or him be the one to explain the world to her, or him be the one to like have her blossom.
Yes. And also like when he comes back, I feel like she's given up the cult life, as you will. She's more accepting of what's happening to her. Also, like sex and stuff. So, like you're talking about with the second book, where the girl's more traumatized and she wants to be in the cult. I expected a little bit more of that from this character, May, as well.
Well, she did have the scene where she like apologized to him by assuming the rape position of her cult. And he's like, what the fuck are you doing? And she's like, well, I displeased you and I don't want you to force me to leave because I don't have anywhere to go, basically. And he's like, you don't have to do that here. What happened to you? And then she explains, that was one of the things, like, what did he say? In his mind, after she tells him what happened, he like is so shocked. And he also already has a horrible speech impediment. And so he like literally can't get any words out about it after she tells him. And my hands gripped May around her waist and I shook in anger. A 30-year-old man fucked an 8-year-old chick with some bear trap contraption prying her innocent pussy open. Sick motherfucker. What kind of pervert does that shit to a kid? Sick motherfuckers, the lot of them. And then he like stutters and says, babe, you telling me you were raped at age 8? I bit out. And she says yes, and he like loses it and leaves the room. And I actually was kind of unhappy for May because obviously like she's like, I told you something very personal and then you just like made me feel shameful about it, made me feel like it was my fault. But really he's like about to like lose it and just murder everyone. And he doesn't. Like I thought she did a good job of the frustration of him trying to like get things out and just like not being able to, and that like bursting out in violent ways and other ways. And I also thought like, frankly, if someone told me that, I don't think that I would like handle it well, and certainly not if it was someone that I loved, or I wouldn't be like, talk to me about your, like, okay, well, that's, I think I would be like, whoa. And in my brain that sound would be going on in my brain. Ah! Like, I'm going to go murder all these people. I'm going to just go commit murder.
You're not wrong. I was talking to a friend of mine who does social work because I'm interested in like fostering eventually. And so I was like, oh, I had some questions or whatever. So she was like explaining some stuff about it to me or whatever. And she said the hardest thing you're going to encounter is the kids who are like sexualized. As soon as she said it, like I could picture it in my mind because I remember going to a bounce house with my niece who's like 3. And there was this older girl who kept like taking her around and my niece was following her, whatever. But that girl was really following me. She would stay really close to me. She would come hold onto my arm, hug onto me, like lounge her body onto the side of me. And she must have been like 11 or 12. And I'm highly uncomfortable, like pushing her off.
Yeah. You don't like to be touched anyways, let alone by people you don't know or small children you don't know.
But it was so sexual in nature, the way she was holding me. And in my mind, I was like, holy hell, what's going on? Like in her home. So I was talking to my friend and I told her this and she was like, and I said that, I was like, holy hell, what's going on in her home? She's like, sex was going on in her home. That's exactly what's going on in her home. She's like, that's how the kids behave when that's going on in their home. And I was just like, she was like, day one, like that's the thing that'll get you. And I was just like, dang, I can't even fathom. She's like, when it's like 3 and 4-year-olds, she's like, you don't know where to put that in your brain. So you just smoke some weed and fucking like veg out.
Yeah. My first note on this book was pedophile cult raping little girls with bear traps. People are disgusting. I mean, it's literally like, to me, unfathomable. And like, thank heavens that it is unfathomable to me. You know what I mean? Because obviously the idea that it is fathomable is not obviously a thought I ever want to have. But when I was reading this, because they talked about one of the girls was like 6 and like my kid's only 3. And I was like, she's so tiny. Like I cannot imagine like the harm physically to the organs, just let alone the emotional trauma, let alone the psychological, let alone all of those things, which are huge. Like physically, children are just not built for that. They are not big enough. They are not strong enough. I'm like grown, the way she describes it. And then when she asked Ryder, have you ever been a part of did that happen in this book? That she asked Ryder if he's ever been a part of a brother-sister sharing? And he's like, I don't know what you're talking about. And so she explains it to him and he like doesn't believe her. And I was like, you pussy ass bitch, not even believing her. Fuck you, bro. You saw the scars on her. Where do you think she got all those fucking scars? Why do you think she ran away from your cult talking about how she was raped as a child? You know what? Like, you little bitch. You little brainwashed ass bitch. Especially since he'd been in the real world for 5 years. And I was like, you know people get raped. Like, you've been in the world 5 years. But I suppose if you were brainwashed as a child, that your cult religion is like the religion.
Well, I guess that's why I have a bit of an issue with how quickly she kind of acclimates to the motorcycle club. Because like, I didn't grow up in a cult, but I grew up in a highly religious home that, I don't know. I think Calvary Chapel is a cult, allegedly. But it took so many years to like deprogram. And every day I feel like it's still a choice. There's certain things where I have to like choose to not regress to, that programming, right? And it's probably not until about now in my life where I feel very confident about like, okay, the decisions I've made and the things I want to believe and the things I think are bullshit. And so the fact it's like they skip a month and then after that month, I feel like she's just kind of on board. I know there's a thing here or there.
Yeah, because she never like goes anywhere. So she's like, in my mind, she's like, understands the rules of this tiny world, but doesn't understand anything about the outside world still, if that makes sense.
So do you think she just went from one cult to another cult?
Basically. Or like one cult to like another group that has a very, very set culture of like what's allowed, what's not allowed. Where the women, I mean, like, again, like she went to a place where women are very much like secondary and expected to like be like the old lady of the guy. They don't get to go to the meetings. So for her, it almost probably felt like not comfortable, but like, yeah, not like comfortable, but like for her, she's not like chafing at, oh, you're telling me that I'm not allowed to know what's going on. Cause she's just like, okay, that's normal for her. She never knows what the fuck's going on. So yeah, I didn't really have a problem with that. I also think like she does for each of the three, I only read 3 of the books, but the next book, like I said, she's very much like brainwashed still, and it takes her a really, really long time to like in her own mind push past it. And you find out more about the cult. Like she cooks dinner for her main dude and some of the other guys, and they ask her to like, oh yeah, come grab a plate. And she's like, you're letting me eat with you? And he's like, if you cook, you eat like with us. Like that's how it is. And she like cries and she's like, thank you. No, like I've never been allowed to eat before. Like I always eat later, like in my room or whatever. And like he tells her to try coffee and she takes a sip even though she doesn't want to. And he's like, if you don't want to take a sip, just say, fuck you, I'm not taking a sip. You don't have to do what I say. Like, you get to decide. And then the next girl who's with Flame, like, she doesn't even come out for, like, all of book 2. Like, she's can't leave her room. She's too afraid. Like, she stands and stares out the window at everyone, but she's too afraid to even go outside the room. So they bring her the food, and, like, she never leaves the room. And it takes her months of time to actually even step outside the room. And then the only reason that she really leaves is because Flame needs her and he saved her. And so she's like, I can be brave for this one thing to like repay this thing to him. And then after that, she basically doesn't leave their house. Because obviously they get together because it is, I mean, they are romance novels. So there are main couples in each one. But after they get together, like she doesn't leave their house basically. Like, she's just with him now in that house. You know what I mean? She occasionally, very occasionally, will leave for short amounts of time, but that's it. And the second one, they end up not living at the house with everyone else. He buys her, like, it's on the same, like, huge property that the MC owns, but he builds her a cabin where she can have, like, some space around her. And because she's very uncomfortable around all the people. And she's very uncomfortable around like all the promiscuous sex and the drug use and the drinking and all this other stuff. And so he builds her like a cabin that they can live in away from, like still with the club because they're like on club grounds, but away. So it's like each one has their own very separate response to the trauma, I guess. So in that sense, but I also read books 2 and 3. So I think if I had only read book 1, I would have been like, she does get over this cult thing real fast. But again, she is the one who decided like, I can't take it anymore. There has to be more out there and I'm going to go find it and like seize it.
Yeah. I do like that is her character where she's like, well, fuck this. If they killed my sister, then I don't believe whatever is happening. So I like that she has at least like that gumption or whatever. And, you know, it's actually really funny because in BDSM or in my journeys through BDSM, I've met 3 different women who used to belong to cults and are now submissives. And it is interesting. I was thinking that when I was reading this book, because she does go from the cult, I think, one cult to another cult. And so I wonder if there's something to that, right? If you're raised in such a way where everything is super duper controlled. It's kind of like jail. You know how there's some people who get out of jail and they don't know how to function. They want to go back to jail or whatever. So like, I wonder if there is something to that. Not like a broad brush that everybody who grows up in a cult wants to go back, but that there's certain personalities or certain people who feel more comfortable having the confines of rules and strict rules. Because I've never met anybody in the cult until I got into BDSM that I now I know 3 people in a cult.
I mean, I have never met anyone that I know of that was willing to tell me so. Who knows if I have or not. Yeah, that's kind of interesting. I mean, I think in general, you sort of gravitate towards what you grew up with or you like. I mean, and this is like such a general broad stroke, but I feel like you either gravitate towards that same sort of life. So like, let's say you grew up in a house where everyone plays sports and everyone is doing like activities and like involved in things, then like generally as an adult, you're like gonna be in a family where that's kind of the norm. You know, or if you're in like a house where everyone reads books, then you're going to grow up and be a house where everyone reads books or whatever the case may be. If you're in a very, very strict house, like you're either going to have a very, very strict house or very, very lax house. Like, I mean, that's obviously general. Like, of course, there's people who break the mold, but I could see it. I think also, I mean, in this instance, again, like to go from that one extreme where you're being raped all the time, but you're being told that it's like, you never even heard the word rape, don't even know what that concept is. You're being told that this is part of your religion and that you're helping them reach God, and that this is part of the way that your soul will be saved and you're going to heaven. And then to leave that and realize it's bullshit and that they are horrible people, and then to come to the real world. But she never goes to the real world. It's not like she goes somewhere and then finds him later. She goes straight there. So to be dropped into a place where everything that they're doing, you have been told, is going to send you to the devil. Like, they're drinking, they're promiscuous, they're killing, they're doing all these things. And yet you're being treated with safety, and no one rapes her or takes advantage of her. In fact, when she like offers this brother-sister sharing or whatever they call it, like, he's like, yo, that's fucking creepy. Like, that's rape. You know, that's bad, right? And I would personally latch right onto that safety, I'm sure. I'd be like, woo, this is a sweet ass life. Y'all going to hell. However, you're also not raping me constantly. And so I find you to be the perfect place for me. And if I was her, it's like, where else is she going to go? She doesn't even have like identification. She's not even like a citizen of America because she's born in this cult and they never register her. Like, she doesn't even have a last name. Like, she has no money. She has no skills. She has no job abilities or prospects. And they actually like give her a job in like the little shop. And so she starts to like learn how to do things and be a part of the world. But like, what else is she gonna do? What do people who escape cults do? It's like, there's got to be some sort of support group infrastructure of people who've escaped and survived and whatnot, I suppose. But anyways, it didn't bother me, I guess, is the roundabout way to say that. Like, I just treated this as fiction, and I was like, okay.
Yeah.
You want to hear the thing I was most upset about, Shani, in this entire book?
Yes.
That they fucked in a bathtub. That is the thing I was most upset about in this whole book. He's like, let me make you feel good. This is the first time we're having sex. And then he just has sex with her. And he doesn't even dry her off and put her in the bed. I was like, you wrong for that. You wrong for that, River. You wrong for that. I'm mad at you.
Okay, so I have one last question. It is about this book, but it's also about any book in general, right? So how do you feel when there's clearly like another love interest, another woman that they're putting in to create like a rift between the main couple?
Like whom?
So Lois to May and Styx.
I don't care. You know why? Because in this instance, she was described and clearly like a fuck buddy. And so I didn't care because he doesn't care about her. And so in my mind, she's not really a impediment to the story. All that she is there to show is that he's not celibate and that he just is willing to fuck anything until he meets the right person. That's all she's there for, is to show that he's a bad boy who'll stick his dick in whatever. So then you also have like a Notebook instance where he's sleeping with this woman because he thinks Allie will never come back, but she has like real feelings for him and he has much more respect for her, but like never will love her like that. So then you have that. It's like the middle ground. And then you have the one where she's clearly, so they're like in a relationship and this is the girlfriend and he's going to leave her for this new person. That one I think is much trickier to pull off because you have to like, the easiest way obviously is to be like, she cheated or she did something horrible. But I think in real life, most of the time it's just like someone has grown apart or they're moving. Like, how often have you seen that happen between yourself or your friends where it's just like, it's just not the right timing. Like, you might be the right person and in 5 years you could have been the right person to marry or whatever, but like for whatever timing reason, like it's just not gonna happen or whatever like life stage reason. So I think that's much trickier to pull off in movies and TV. But in this instance, I was just like, that's fine. She's just a plot device. And like, she is one dimensional, but I would have been madder if she had stayed in the whole book and she was always there, like nagging through the story.
No, instead they just shot her in the head.
Yeah, instead she's just like, I wish it could have been me. Like, what's left for me? And then she dies.
Wait, I just want to say this because so many books use this thing where the guy goes back to the woman. So he goes to Lois and then she's going to give him a blowjob. But then he's like, no. You don't get points for like getting almost all the way there and then being like, no. I don't like that shit. Okay? Just put your dick in her mouth, enjoy the process, and then come back from that shit later. But like this whole thing about like, I just couldn't. I loved somebody else so much, I just couldn't. I would have respected that scene more if he had just fucked Lois.
Why?
Because every book does that.
Oh, I see why you're mad. You're not mad because he didn't have sex with Lois. You're mad because authors use it as a plot device. Okay. I was like, why would you be mad at that? It's like,
it just drives me crazy. Either say no up front, like, or whatever, or like, don't get all the way to the edge or whatever. And then it's like, no. And oh my God, she walked in.
Don't get like all the way to the point where she's like naked and on her knees. And then you're like, but I wasn't going to do it. And it's like, okay, well, you don't have a lot of credibility right now.
Then to me, that's like a pussy move. That's not my favorite thing. But there's certain things in there that I just want people to commit to. Like there was a neo-Nazi on the team or whatever. And they were like, he's not a Nazi anymore. He likes anybody who respects him. And I was like, that is the weirdest line.
Well, you find out that he fell in love with a cartel princess. And so he has to rethink all of his Nazi beliefs. They have a book later, which I did not read. I did not read yet, but the reason that he ends up leaving the Aryan race, and even though he's like the heir to the clan in all of Texas, is because he falls in love with the cartel princess. And he realizes that he's a hypocrite because if he can love her, then what the hell has he been doing? I mean, I don't know what happens in their story. I mean, there's more to the story, but that's as far as I know about their story. That's what happens.
You're telling me there is a Mexican princessa neo-Nazi love story?
Oh, yeah, there is.
Oh, shit.
Yes, there is, Shani.
Shit.
Yes, there is. In fact, it is called Darkness Embraced.
Darkness Embraced.
Adelita is the cartel princess.
Dang.
Yeah.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, Tillie Call.
Hold on. I'm just now reading through. So his sister, you meet a character in the next book, and then she has been hidden away from the MC. And I'm not going to tell you a lot. You guys can come to Patreon and listen to my review. But I will tell you that she is vibing with 2 of the Hades hangmen. And someone points it out. Hey, you're vibing with both those guys. And she's like, don't I know it? And they're like, they both are interested. And she's like, I know. And I'm like, oh, yes, you do know. And it turns out that they're supposed to protect her in their book, which is book number 6, called Crux Untamed. And scarred by events from his past and a secret that plagues him in everyday life, Hush refuses to let anyone get close. Only Cowboy knows the real him, until a certain sister of the club's VP begins to slowly knock down his defenses, shattering the heavily built walls that guard his damaged soul, with his best friend leading the charge. A newly mended threesome. So I wasn't going to read anymore because I will tell you that number 4, the reason I didn't read book number 4 is because it's about Kane / writer. And I was like, you know what? He does some real dick moves also in books 2 and 3. And I was like, you're basic. And I don't want to read about you. So I didn't want to read it. Even though the reviews are very much like, hated it, loved it. So like there's no middle ground. It's like I'm either going to hate it or love it. And I was like, well, I'm just not going to read it. And then the next one is about AK, who I do like AK a little bit, but I'm like, it's about another cult girl and him. And I'm like, I don't know about that. But now that I know that there's going to be a threesome, I think I will skip books 4 and 5 and I will read book 6. And you will also hear about that on Patreon. I will circle back and let you know how the threesome goes. I don't know if it's a throuple or if it's a threesome. Sounds like it might be a throuple, but I'll keep you guys posted on Patreon. So I will wait until Patreon to tell you all about book 6 and whether it is a threesome or a throuple.
And on that note, let's take a break.
Hello, best friends. Thank you for being loyal listeners of Romance at a Glance. We're so happy to have you. If you'd like to support us further, head over to Patreon, where you can become one of our patrons. We've got a lot of great perks, such as merch and a super secret discussion group where Bridget and I talk to you directly about all things romance and all things nasty. So come on over. And now, back to our show.
And we're back.
Back.
All right, Bridget. What did you think of our heroine?
Shani, I gave her 5 stars. Here's why.
You did not shut your motherfucking mouth, but you did not give her 5 stars.
Here's the reason. One is I read this book multiple weeks ago, but I'm also giving her 5 stars. I might have been 4 or something, but it's 5 now because I put it on the paper and this is what it is. I thought she had gumption. She left the cult. She had courage. She was like, I'm the fuck out of here. It's not her fault that everyone she loves has issues. Or that her new best friend, Ryder, has PAB tendencies, okay? Like, she's doing the best she can. She has overcome insurmountable odds. She's not actually, like, a huge pushover. Like, when he comes back after his little snafu with Lois, and also the second time after, or, like, after the time when he kind of, like, storms out after she tells him about how she was raped, she's like, no, I'm not going with you. Like, you hurt my feelings. I'm not doing this. Like, you need to do better. So she's not actually like a pushover. I do think, to your point about the cult, like, okay, perhaps it's like not realistic, but I don't care. It's fiction. And so this is the character that I was given, and I'm fine with her character. And when she gets back to the cult after being kidnapped, she doesn't act like a little bitch. She's like, okay, guys, we're going to do this together, and I'm going to take care of you, and we're going to weather this storm. And when her man comes with his army of motorcycle people, she's like fucking pointing out hits left and right. She's like, the only stupid thing she does is let her old best friend Ryder go, which comes back to haunt her in later books. But aside from that, I probably should have knocked off a star just for that because it was a stupid decision. But aside from that, I liked her. I gave her 5 stars. I liked her. I also feel like I like her in the next books, which may have influenced my rating of this book. Like, had I actually done my ratings after this book the way I'm supposed to, this might have been a 4. But I do like her in the next books as well. And she really takes care of her sisters, and she, like, grows as a character and, like, becomes the old lady and blah, blah, blah. So she gets 5 stars. I'm doing it, Shani.
I know you're doing it, but I do not agree. But since those are your stars.
Clearly this entire episode has been you and me like explaining this book to you. So I am not
like
surprised.
My grandmother. People can't see us, but
oh, you know what I didn't even talk about yet, Shani, though?
What?
Which also I feel like upped my ratings is I love Sons of Anarchy. Did you ever watch that TV show? Oh my motherfucking God, Johnny. We are immediately after this going to watch an episode. Hopefully it's streaming somewhere. Shani, Charlie Hunnam. Do you know who Charlie Hunnam is, the actor?
No.
Google his face real fast. Charlie Hunnam, Sons of Anarchy. Just treat yourself to a quick peek of the smoke show that is Charlie Hunnam on Sons of Anarchy. And just like cash scroll through some of the images of his back, his chest.
Listen, from the neck down, I will give you that. I will give you this man from the neck down.
You don't like his face?
No.
Who? Oh, we're not friends anymore. We're breaking up.
And there's only like 2 blondes that I love, and one is Brad Pitt.
One of your partners is blonde, you hypocrite.
That's the other one.
Your friendship is over. This friendship is over. Anyways.
Is this the episode that's going to take us out, Bridget?
This is it. No, you know, I don't care. You can have your own opinion. Anyway, so I watched the show for, I think, like seven seasons or whatever. And this book brought back so much nostalgia because all of the terminology is the same. Like, she clearly did her research because all of the terminology is the same. So I got so much, like, out of it, just, like, being like, oh, she's going to be the old lady. Like, and in my mind, like, River, even though he's described very differently, is Jax. In my mind, like the way he looks and talks and acts, even though Jax did not have a speech impediment and was not mute, I feel like that really affected the way I read this book, is that I already knew the world from that show. And they also do, like, they have tons of dealings with, like, the Aryan nations and, like, the cartels and the gangs of different races and stuff like that.
I did find one picture where he is remarkably tan and chiseled, and they got the lighting just right.
Does he have, like, a necklace hanging on his chest?
He's got a necklace on.
Yes.
And in this picture, he does look a truly scrumptious.
Shani, after this, I'm going to share some videos of him fucking on that show. His back and his ass. Anyone who watched this show, you know what I'm talking about.
As soon as we finish with this podcast,
him fucking on this show is some of the best things of my life. My young life. When did this show start? Sons of Anarchy. I want to say I don't know if I was that young, but I was not that old when this started. Yeah, 2008. How old was I in 2008? 20?
So here's my thing. Motorcycle clubs, I've only read like one book maybe a long time ago. I don't know all the terminology, but I mean, context clues. I got that there was stuff that was the culture of what it was, and I tried to accept that because it was like a variable I couldn't control. This is what motorcycle clubs are. But I have to tell you, because I'm brown, Bridget. I don't know if you noticed, but...
Hi! Never saw it before. I never noticed. I'm colorblind.
Colorblind.
Legitimately. No. Not like the fake people who don't see color. I literally can't see any color. I see only in grayscale. You're more gray.
More gray. I lean towards
darker gray.
But I would be performing in various different bands, and most of the bands I was in, it was like all white folks, right? There might have been like, there was a black girl in one band or whatever, but for the most part, the majority, white men.
Yep.
I distinctly remember this one time showing up for a show, and I was in, I don't know if I can describe this for you, but what amounted to a bedazzled leotard, like one piece, like a bathing suit, like a one-piece bathing suit looking leotard.
Yeah.
With green cheetah tights on and a tulle train that dragged on the floor, right? And my afro puff, glitter on my face, and like red lips and
the definition of extra. That's what you're
telling me. The very like 5-inch
on stage
heels,
extra.
Right? So I'm ready for our performance, right? And they give me the address, and I show up to a biker bar. Okay? I am the only melanin in that place for miles and miles, Bridget. I grabbed my friend, I was like, you idiot. If you gonna have me showing up to a place like this, you need to tell me where the hell I'm going. Like, I walked in there and it was just like every eye just turned and I was like, oh.
We also need a carpool. I would wear a much more muted outfit.
Oh my God. This is the night I die. Is this how I go? Is this where I fucking... That was not fun. I had to have some stern talks that night. But I do have a picture of it and my face looks exactly how you think it does.
The wide-eyed panic. The wide-eyed panic smile. Okay, well, Shani, what did you give our heroine?
I gave Homegirl a 2.
Okay.
She gained a point. Okay, I was going to give her a 1. Okay? I was going to give her a 1 because she left her sisters behind and she wasn't too eager to go find them. Okay? Sisters before misters. Okay? I like that she had gumption and she gained a point for me by pointing out that fool at the end and being like, snipe him. Snipe him.
Yes, for sure.
So I like that she grew through the book, you know? I did think that she got there a little fast or whatever. And I do think it's a little bit of a cheat to skip the time like the author did in the beginning of the book like that. But whatever, is what it is. But I didn't feel like there was much to her. I thought there could have been more gumption. I thought that there could have been more between her and Styx. I wanted more romance between them.
I definitely agree with the wanting more romance. 100%.
It was like, I did not know why they were together other than the fact that they met when they were little kids and she had wolf eyes.
Obviously, they were soulmates, Shani. Jesus.
I mean, yes, there were sparkles. There were sparkles in the air or whatever. But he was like dropping, he was like, I'm gonna drop my girl on the side. I'm dropping everything for her, right? And there was actually a point in the book that was kind of realistic in the very beginning where when he met her and he saw she had the wolf eyes or whatever, and she freaked out about something right away. And it was the first like real moment where he realized like, oh, she's a traumatized person and this might be more than I bargained for.
Yeah.
And I was like, go with that thought, my dude. Go with that thought. But then that was it. That was just that one moment. And then it just seemed like everything else kind of worked out from there. And I guess I wanted to see a little bit more of that snafu.
Them working together.
And then them working together and communicating through some of those things.
I will say that books 2 and 3 are significantly more romance novel front and center. They are very much about the romance. A lot of other things happen, of course, but they are more centralized and the main characters do.
This book is interesting because I didn't like this book, right? As an overall, I didn't like this book. However, I do want to read the next 2.
I know. I hear you.
Most of the time, if I don't like the book, I'm like, burn them all to the ground. I don't want to. But Flame had me intrigued. And to get to Flame, I might as well read Kai.
Might as well read it. It's actually, I like book 2. I think probably of the 3, I would say this might be the weakest of the first three. Maybe this one's sort of on par with the second book, though, because the second book I think has a better romance, but also, again, like, she's so brainwashed. I was like, look, I know you're brainwashed. I know that that's a fact. And also, get your shit together, lady. These people are bad. You don't want to go back there. They're bad people. They're bad people.
I agree. I'm going to give it a read.
Okay, what did you think about our hero?
McHothead, I gave him a 2 as well.
Oh, McHothead. That's good.
I mean, I thought he was too dumb. And that he was like all bronze, no brains for me. And I needed the brains. The fact that they killed the wrong snitch.
Yeah. He was flying by the seat of his pants. Honestly, like, it reminded me so much of Jax Teller because they just, like, make so many mistakes and they're just, like, they're in over their head and they're just trying to swim. Like, that's basically Jax Teller in a nutshell. Again, I gave him a 4. The nostalgia, Shani. The nostalgia was real.
Now I gotta watch that show.
And I did like him. Again, like, I feel like he probably earned a little bit more. He probably would have been a 3 if I had rated this before I read the other 2 books. But just like everyone else, like, he grows as a character and he's, like, in the other books too. I definitely don't like the chest beating, stay away from my woman. Like, she already said no to the guy. Like, just be like, hey, respect her no, bro. Like, back off. But he, like, beats the guy up, like, I feel unnecessarily.
Yeah. I like the alpha male, like, she's mine, that type of thing, right? That's part of my kink. So I actually really enjoy that. However, it just seemed to happen, like, so many times and, like, it was redundant.
Yeah. It's because Ryder was a pussy ass bitch. She was trying to, like, come up in his, and I was like, Ryder, stop being an idiot. This man's gonna murder you.
Yeah, like, I don't know. I couldn't quite figure out why it kept happening.
Yeah. But I do love a man who's willing to, like, give a bullet in fiction, of course, and moved hell and high water to save her and her sisters and was just, like, just giving out hits like it ain't no thing for her. He was like, you want that man dead? He's dead. You want that man dead? He's dead. You want that man dead? He's dead. Like, he's just, they got there and he's just like, kill all the men. Like, keep the women and children alive. Kill everyone else. And I was like, yes, that is the hellfire and brimstone a cult of pedophiles deserves. Murder everyone except for the women and children.
You know what's funny is that, like, so the cult has all these prophecies about what's about to happen.
Yeah.
And when everybody gets murdered, it doesn't clue them into the fact that these prophecies would not work out.
Yes, I agree. In the second and third books, they talk about a little bit about that because they, like, move the cult to another location. And basically, they, like, don't tell people what happened officially. So they know that the, like, main prophet died, but I think they don't tell them that it's because, or they don't tell most people that he was murdered. And they tell them that the commune, like, closed and that they're bringing all the different communes together into, like, one major compound. But they don't really tell them, I don't think they really tell the people, like, what happened, except for, like, the ruling council. And then, of course, Ryder's in for, like, a rude surprise when he realizes that, like, everyone except for him knows that they're, like, raping small children and stuff like that.
He's the odd man out.
He's like, wait a minute, that's true? Like, the fuck is going on here?
I will give McHothead his 1 point because he did kill all those people.
Yeah.
However, there's one line in the book where he basically is like, yo, I'm about to eat that pussy. And I was like, that's a good line. Yeah.
Yeah.
Just yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yes.
Go get it. Go and get it, son. You know what's weird is because it wasn't a romance and there wasn't a ton of, like, sexual tension built up. Like, I felt like their sex scenes were good, but they weren't, like, sexy in the sense that I wasn't invested in them fucking. And I definitely feel like I was certainly more invested in, like, the future books.
I literally was thinking about Flame the entire book. Once she went to see him and he was cutting himself up and doing whatever, and I was like, he's got a book and I want to read it.
You know what? Dear patrons and dear listeners, I'm going to wait to give my review of Flame's book until Shani can listen to it because I feel like we both need to. The second book, whether you want to listen to it or not, you can. And I'll wait for you if you want me to, but I could also just tell you what happens. But the third book, I think I'm going to have to wait for you to read it so that we can talk about it because I'm intrigued. Also, I said that he was a McDreamy. Like, he's supposed to be a McSteamy, but he's not a McSteamy. He's really a McDreamy because he saves her and he takes care of her and protects her from the cult. So he's really a McDreamy.
Yeah. And apparently, his love for her stops his stutter. Dun, dun, dun.
It does.
Just at the very end, that one scene.
Yeah, he says, like, one whole sentence without stuttering. I don't know that much about stuttering, although I've seen it in a few movies that it was like featured prominently in. But it does seem to be the more that you can be relaxed and not worried about your words, the less you stutter. Seems to be like a general thing. So like for me, it just went back to that sort of like soulmate idea that even as a child, he like something about her like relaxed him enough that he could talk. And the more he was around her and she didn't judge him for the way he talked and she didn't like make him uncomfortable for the way he talked, he like was able to relax around her. That was just the way I took it. Because he still doesn't, it's not like she solves his stutter and now he can talk to other people. He still can't talk to other people. You know what I mean?
He just delivered that one sentence.
Yeah, he just talks to her only.
All right, Bridge. I know you got like a bunch of favorite lines.
I actually don't have that many. I thought she had one night, like sweet one, which is when she's like essentially like reaffirming the fact that she loves him after he's worried about Ryder. And she says, I have only ever liked one boy in my life. I have only wanted one man to have as my own. I have only ever had one dream since I was 8. Styx, the dream is you. You stole my heart 15 years ago and you still haven't given it back. And I always just think that's like a nice sentiment, you know, when someone's like, it's kind of like the end of a rom-com, you know, when they're like listing the 10 things they love about someone and you're just like, aw, that's nice that you that you only have ever loved him. Like, that's just it's just nice, you know? It's just nice. I like it.
I had 2 favorite lines. Well, one favorite, which is very simple. I want you to own me. I was like, yes, own her. She's asking for it. Yeah. Just own her. You know what I'm saying? Don't make her ask twice. And then the other one is more of like, it's not quite that I liked it, but it was, I was wrong. So damn, I'm not going to read the stutter because my brain won't.
Yeah.
I was wrong. So damn wrong. You need a strong man, babe. You need a man to love you, to protect you, to be your fucking world. Her breath paused and I smirked. It's me, babe. It's so fucking me. And I was like, there's that title of the book. Yeah, there's the title. Look at that coming off full circle.
Yes.
Full circle.
It is me. It wasn't at the beginning, I didn't think, but it is. My other favorite one was also a stutter, but I won't read the stutter, is I want you to. Fuck, I want you in my bed, by my side, on my bike. I want you as my old lady, taking care of me, needing me, letting me inside you. And I was like, well, why don't you just let him right on inside them? You severely traumatized cult survivor. I think that was also part of it, was the like, there were a few things that, and this is like such a weird thing to say, but that I was happy about in terms of the way that they were raped. And I know this is going to sound really weird and it might be a horrible sentiment, but I was happy they were never kissed on the mouth. And I was happy that they only ever did it like as like a weird, like tying the hands behind the back doggy style, only because I feel like it made it easier for me in my mind to not be wondering like, why isn't she freaked out by kissing him? Or why isn't she freaked out by him being on top of her or her being on top of him? And so like he never has sex with her doggy style, because I imagine that would be incredibly triggering. But it's not like I'm like happy, because obviously I'm not happy she was raped in the story at all, even though it's fiction. But I'm also like, it helped explain the way that she was able to have sex, I guess, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I understand what you're saying.
And then, although I will say that in the 3rd book, she is not even sure she'll ever be able to like touch him at the beginning of the book. She's like worried she'll like literally never be able to stand his hand touching her anywhere on her entire, because like she like kind of had it the worst. Like her brother who was assigned to her was like the worst of them. So like I will say, like again, like she definitely had a very different sexual experience for at least the 3 characters so far that I have seen. And I will obviously be reading the threesome and let you know about the threesome.
Okay. The threesome has to be read. I mean, it has to. The thing is, like, as much as I dislike this book, I don't dislike Tillie Cole's writing. So it's like, I feel like that might be confusing, but like, I can see the potential. And even though this book was so clumsy to me, this book felt very clumsy, I can see it being a good world builder for the next book or the next books to come. So I'm actually excited to read more from Tillie Cole, even though this one did not hit my buttons.
Hit the spot for you. I agree. I definitely agree. I wanted to read, so this book was recommended a lot, and also so was Lord of London Town, which is one of her newer books. And this book, I think, was written in 2014. So like this book is like, she's been writing for 7 years since now. So, and the Lord of London Town one is supposed to be like much darker. Like he's a London mafia prince sort of idea. But they did not have it on audio. That's why I did not choose it. But I'll probably read that one too and just like check it out for you and let you know. Treat myself.
Let me know. Also, so I'm not convinced that the Motorcycle Club books are my Jimmy Jam and not my cup of tea, but they're also like not terrible. It's not like I hate them, but it's just if I have like the option.
I honestly feel like it's more of like an action suspense thing for you. Like this is where this kind of falls for me is like I like this type of book. I like this type of TV show. Like it had a lot of like all the stuff that you had problems with. Obviously, I was like I didn't have any problems with that because XYZ blah blah blah. And the same thing I feel like was when we were reading like any book that has spies or black ops or something, and you're like, what about all these things? And I'm like, Shani, none of that matters. And so I feel like that makes sense why I like this book more than you do.
Yeah. I mean, I'm gonna try more Tillie Cole, and I think I'll try like another Motorcycle Club from like a different author.
We have another one I think coming up this season.
Oh, okay.
You guys like it should be at the tip of my tongue like what books we're doing this season, but it's not.
It is late. It is 11:30 at night.
It's not that it's 11:30. It's just like, well, we can announce it on the podcast. I'm moving to Chicago. So Shani is unhappy about this development, although it's going to be great. We haven't seen each other in real life really in a year anyways. And everything is still going great in our friendship and business partnership. So we will keep delivering great content. I think we're going to see each other like so much more than you think. And it's going to be like quality time because I'm going to leave my children and we're going to go spend like a weekend at a convention together. Or I'm going to leave my family and then we're going to go.
You had me at leave the children.
You know what I'm saying? Because then my brother and his kids are there so they could take the kids for the weekend. They're bigger now. They can go with my mom or my dad. There's going to be a lot more opportunities for like solo bridge Shani time, which is going to be stupendous. So what did you give the old book? What did you give the final rating? You're at a 2, so I'm assuming you gave it a 2, but maybe not.
I was waffling between 2 and 3. I was. Because normally if I think a book is a good solid read,
yeah,
I give it a 3, even if it's not my favorite. However, I gave this book a 2 because I don't want anybody to read this book thinking I gave it a 3 and think it's a solid book. I don't think it's solid.
Okay.
So I gave it a 2.
I gave it a 4 because I read 2 and 3 after. I was like you. I was intrigued by the next stories. And I always feel like if I like a book enough and I'm reading it and I like immediately want to open book number 2, that's like for me, I don't usually do that with book like 3s. Usually I'm like, oh, that was okay. And then I just move on. But usually 4s or 5s. I mean, 5s, I immediately, like before I'm even finished, I've already like purchased the next one or already have it in the queue ready to go or I panic. But 4s, like I will immediately like read the next one. So I did read books 2 and 3 right after because I wanted to see what happened to her sisters. I definitely don't think this book was hot or steamy. They do have some good sex on the page, but it's definitely, again, not hot or steamy. It's just like sex on the page. For me, like this book was more like fascinating and I was invested in the characters and like the side characters in the world. So I wanted to like stay in the world. And also like, again, a lot of nostalgia for the MC world, a lot of sense of anarchy love bleeding into this. A lot of just like, I enjoy this type of book where there's like a lot of just like shit going on and a lot of like action and things are like moving. I enjoy that in general when I'm reading. And I just thought like the cult stuff was just like fascinating to read about. And again, I liked books 2 and 3. I do think like I would give it a 4 regardless. I probably would have given the characters a 4 and a 3, honestly, if I had rated this right after I read it, but I didn't. So they're staying at a 5 and a 4 and a 4 overall.
Which makes sense though, because normally we're like a star off from each other.
Yeah, a 4 and a 3 would make more sense than a 5 and a 4. But again, I do have to say that I like the characters in the next books.
Hey man, there was some redemption for them.
There's redemption. I did not like Ryder's character enough to read his book. Though I was like, fuck you, bro. You don't deserve a happy ending. You don't deserve a happy ending. So I will skip you and I will go into...
I just feel like for Ryder to have a happy ending, like for me to enjoy Ryder's book, he's got to do something so amazing that it like counterbalances all the bullshittery.
Do you want me to tell you what happens in book 3 or should I save it for Patreon?
No, don't tell me. I'm going to read book 3. Wait, which one is Ryder's book? His is book 4, right?
His is book 4, but he's featured heavily in books 2 and 3 because he's like the main.
Okay, no. I'm gonna read it. I'm gonna read it. Yeah.
Well, there you have it, guys. A 4 and a 2. This might be the furthest apart Shani and I have ever been. Oh, wait, that's probably not true, though, because Katrina Jackson's book, we are far apart, too.
We were polar opposites.
I love that book so much.
Which I have to read another Katrina Jackson, because...
Pink Slip. You should read it if you guys like spy romance. It is sexy as fuck. I love it.
It's got a lot of sex in it, I will tell you that. But you have to suspend your logical, disbelief if you want.
It's a spy romance, Shani. They already knew they had to suspend disbelief. It's a spy menage throuple romance. That's all. That's it. A married couple falls in love with their assistant. Both of them they all fall in love with each other. It's a spy romance. It's a spy romance.
I feel a little bit bad because, so Katrina Jackson's book we did early on in the podcast, right? So since then, I felt like we were reading much more of these quickie, get you off type books or whatever, which I feel like Katrina Jackson's book is a bit like that because it wasn't a novella.
No, but it's not long.
Okay, it felt like a novella, and it's it felt very much like a quickie get you off, and that's kind of what it is. Now,
yeah, it's 280 pages, so it's not super short, but it's also not long.
It's not long. Bridget is correct. I do not really enjoy spy books. I tell her all the time, I don't want to be titillated. But if I'm going to be in a spy thing or cops or detectives or things like that, then I get invested in that and then I want it to make sense. And so I just could not, under any circumstance, fathom why they brought her on a spy mission.
Which is the dumbest, the whole premise of the book is her problem is that you would never bring your civilian assistant on a spy mission, except for that they had to, because they needed to get into a BDS club and they needed to be a threesome to entice the bad guy so that then they could save the world. And they don't trust anyone else except for her. And they're in love with her. Obviously.
So they brought a civilian into a highly dangerous situation.
And she performed
when
with
they murdered
aplomb.
someone in front of her.
Aplomb. Shani, I don't want to hear any more nonsense about logic. She knows they kill people. They're spies. She doesn't care about that.
She did not know they were spies until afterwards. And out telling her they just killed a motherfucker right in front of her. And she was just like, okay.
Shani, guys, ignore. Actually, you know what? Don't ignore Shani. You know what you should do? We're going to end this episode. But you definitely should go back to season 3 and listen to us talk about the episode and about the book because it was so much fun. It basically was the exact same thing of Shani just being like, what the fuck's going on? And me being like, ignore it. It's fun. I also would like to say that it is one of the very, very few. I think we've only done 2 books where there was no audiobook. So you can go back and listen to us discuss whether I think and Shani thinks we talked about whether that colored her review and whether if she had listened to it, if she would have rated it maybe a star higher. So it's a really interesting episode. So definitely go check it out in season 3. It came out in, I want to say May, possibly June of 2020 if you were scrolling through your podcasting app.
And if you guys have another Katrina Jackson book that you recommend highly, hit me up because I want to give her a second read.
Especially if there's audio.
But I want to give her a second read because I felt like she came in early and I've relaxed my standards in terms of some of these books that are just these little quick adventure rompers or whatever.
Yeah, I don't think you would, because none of the other quickie books that we've done are in that genre.
I mean, you're very true.
I just don't think you like that genre, suspense.
Oh, no, you're not wrong. You're not wrong, Bridget, but
I feel like if you're recommending Katrina Jackson, recommend a Katrina Jackson that is not in the suspense romance. Get Shani some regular, non-spy romance from Katrina Jackson.
Contemporary, anything historical, fantasy, if Katrina Jackson has any fantasy, aliens, I will also accept.
Oh my God, you guys, fun surprise. We are going to go on our homegirl Sarah's Smart Bitches Trashy Books podcast. And she knows us so well that she chose a alien menage for us.
Yes.
What a sweetheart. What a sweetheart. Sarah, we love you.
So considerate.
So considerate. She's like, what do you guys think about this? And we were like, yes, please. That sounds delightful. So we're super excited about that. We will let you guys know when that episode is going to be coming out in the next couple of months. Weeks? I don't actually know when it comes out. Weeks? Months? Who knows?
I don't know. All right. That is all we have for you tonight. This is just a good night, Bridget. I love when we disagree on a book.
I do too. It's so fun.
The most fun.
It's the most fun. I feel like there's going to be a lot more disagreements in this season just based on the subject matter.
True.
And also because I don't think neither of us have read any of the authors before. So like in historicals, you had already read a bunch of the authors. In our season that we just did, the mashup, we had already read I had already read a couple of the authors, not that book necessarily, but I was choosing authors like for a specific purpose. And so this is a season where we have not read a single author. So that's exciting.
Yeah, it's exciting. And I think I've read quite a bit dark romance, but I wouldn't say I'm like hugely versed in dark romance. So it's kind of nice to go on this like adventure together.
Hell yeah.
Like, I'm digging this shit.
Digging it.
But I would like a proper dark romance.
I'm hopeful because there's a couple in here that have some real titles that I'm like, can't not be dark with that title, right? Right?
I know we have like a mafia one later on in the season, and I'm like, I love mafia. I mean, we talked about the Russian mafia.
We have some bully romances too. So we have some I think we'll probably get some good bullying in our romance.
Good bullying. And on that note,
may your books be your lover.
And your hand, your best friend.
Goodbye,
We
friends.
love you.
Ciao, ciao. Thanks for listening.
Subscribe to our channel to get new episodes, clips, and more.
And click here to watch our previous reviews and author interviews.